Hello everyone. I have a great pleasure to welcome you on the next GoToWebinar session from the DigiFoF series. Today, topic of our webinar will be skills and organizational transformation needs to support service-oriented business models. My name is Zbigniew Misiak and I'll be your host. But today, we'll have much more interesting setting than usually during our GoToWebinar sessions. But before I dive into that, a few technical aspects. Since we are using GoToWebinar, if you're using application and you want to interact with that, if you want to ask some questions, you need to expand the GoToWebinar panel, and there you have questions pane where you can put out the questions. At the very end, there will be Q&A part and we'll be answering your questions. If you're using the browser-based GoToWebinar connection, you need to expand it, and this option allows you to ask questions. Of course, all microphones from participants are muted, so you can only hear the presenters. And for the presenters, let me give floor to Nadine, who will be moderator of today's presentation, because we'll have lots of presenters and Nadine will be moderating everything. So Nadine, I pass the presenter rights to you. Floor is yours.
Hi everybody, thanks Zbigniew. So we are going to speak about not a difficult theme, but something who can interest lots of companies. There is a problem. I can't see the presentation. Oh, okay.
I can see it.
Yes, yes.
This is not a full screen, but okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me for this incident. So we are going to speak about how in a company we can associate some services with products, and how this evolution of the companies can have an impact on skills and organizational transformation. So before beginning, perhaps we can just explain a little concepts, PSS, servitization, and functional service economy. There is a 3 level. The offer level is a product system, it's a product service system, like something which associate product service networks of actors and supporting infrastructure that continuously strives to be competitive, satisfy customer needs, and have a lower environmental impact than traditional business models. So we are going to speak about PSS sometimes in this webinar. But we are also speaking about servitization, just like an innovation of an organization capabilities and processes to be better create mutual value through a shift from selling product to selling PSS. And we also speak about the economic system level and functional service economy, which is that optimize the use or function of goods and services that boost the management of existing wealth, goods, knowledge, and nature. The economic objective of the functional economy is to create the highest possible use value for the longest possible time while consuming as few material resources and energy as possible. Just to introduce, because we are going to speak about these elements, but the topic is skill and organizational transformations. So at the beginning, you are going to have a feedback about servitization in manufacturing sector. After, we are going to speak about the condition to change a company's business model. And after, we are going to see how skill and organizational transformations can be analyzed. And at the end, Klextrol is going to be presented like as an industrial case. You can, if you have some question during all this presentation, you can write them as Zbigniew explained to you. So we are several speakers, and the first speaker is Arnaud Boquillon, who is going to speak about feedback about servitization in manufacturing sector. Hi, Arnaud.
Hello, everyone.
So you can speak about feedback about servitization in manufacturing sector?
Yes. First point is that we try to change the behavior of our member from customers and customer versus subcontractor relationship to a solution seeker versus solution provider relationship. So it means the solution provider has to listen to customer needs and mainly its everyday problems. I mean all the everyday problems that make the customer lose money and time. By this way, the techno solution provider can help its customer by solving this everyday problem, help it to concentrate on its core business. The techno solution provider can enrich its offer with high-valued services because it knows its own product behavior under the customer usage. The techno solution provider often owns a part of its customer know-how, and by this way, it may be or become a key player among stakeholders. A few examples are shown there. For example, Michelin Tire developed Michelin Fleet Solutions. La Forésienne, which is a local French SME, it is a saw maker for the wood and forestry companies. And Desgranges Outillage, who developed Desgranges Aero Tool Management. And so Desgranges is a machining tools maker. All these examples point out maker of wearable items, and PSS development is more easy to valorize when the product either is wearable or needs maintenance or frequent retrofit, setup, tuning, adjustment, and so on. Because you can easily prove and valorize the added value of the service. So a guideline is to propose and to think about new added value added to the product. And don't hesitate to challenge, renew the role of the stakeholder on the value chains. Another point is that there is no point break in servitization. I mean, you don't have to fully switch to service. The servitization can concern only a part of the techno solution provider activities. Among its product range, a service-based model can coexist with a product-based model. So every product solution provider have to choose the relevant product to evolve toward PSS. And it's not enough because the techno solution provider has to choose the relevant customer as well to become the partner in the PSS building in regard to the customer size, its turnover, the geographic distance, the trust, and the work habits you have with it. And moreover, you have to choose a product in regard to the product performance facing the customer usage. I mean, some products are more resilient to strong usage, and other items may be less resilient to this usage. So you have to choose the right the right fit between the product and the customer usage. However, the servitization can be not relevant. So the issues can be summarized with the following points. Unbalanced strengths between solution seeker and solution provider can be an issue. Unknown solution seekers' working habits and its usage can be another hard point. Unknown or uncontrolled performance of the product under various operating conditions can also be a hard point. So, few advice: choose a relevant product and customer to develop PSS. There is no dead end. Discussion about know-how, added value, and PSS will necessarily be fruitful for the techno solution provider as well as the customer, so between both. Customers, buyers are not used to buy PSS. Buyers are used to buy manufacturing solution as technology and product, and they are used to deal with investment and depreciation. Sometimes they may have heard about software as a service, but not about manufacturing as a service or robotic as a service, for example. But in the same company, some buyers are used to buy services, but not on manufacturing solutions. For example, they are used to buy catering, restaurant, laundry, car renting, and so on. So there is a kind of misunderstanding between the buyers who are used to buy services and in the same company some other that are not, and you have maybe to meet both to facilitate the PSS demonstration and valorization. And you also may have to contact technical person in the same company to make the proof of the added value of the PSS. For example, method expert, maintenance manager, operation manager, production manager may be relevant person to discuss with to convince about your PSS added value. So you have to find the right contact to be sensitive to PSS added value. Usually a hard point is to convince about the cost effectiveness of the PSS solution. So try to co-build the PSS offer with the customer in a collaborative way, and of course be patient and explain once again and as many times as useful to convince. And of course, servitization is a matter of skills in both sides, for the techno solution provider and the customer as well. So it is a matter of skills, of soft skills also, and it is a matter of management of change. So that's all for me, and the next speakers will go deeper into details about the skills that are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnaud. Thank you, Arnaud, for all these examples and for the guidelines you gave. Now we are going to speak about especially the case of the functional economy of the cooperation. So Amandine and Laurent are going to explain us how deal with this this concept of the economy of the cooperation. Hi, Amandine and Laurent.
Hello.
It's up to you.
Okay, yes. Thank you. So I will start by defining what it means to implement functional economy of cooperation within a business model. So the functional economy of cooperation is part of circular economy, and companies that aims to apply it within their business model need to gather certain conditions, which are, for example, focusing on using over processing and decreasing negative impacts of activities on the environment, but also they need to dissociate economic development from natural resources consumption and implementing efficient and value-creating solutions in a sustainable way. And also they need to enshrine cooperation within a territory as an essential element. So it's really based on the effects and the outcomes. And here you can observe that on the left, we have what traditional companies would call the outcome. And on the right, what companies using functional economy would call the outcome. They use means to create outcome, whereas traditional companies use means as the outcome. For example, when you want to heat houses in the functional-based economy, you don't buy or sell a boiler, you buy or sell a thermal comfort and energy efficiency. A company in the food industry, for example, would not sell food but well-being, and a company in healthcare industry would provide health recovery. Also, a company in IT would provide access to information and not sell subscription. And finally, as you can see, in the automotive industry or transportation industry, the outcome is not buying means of transportation, but traveling in safe conditions. And in order to change their business model, companies need to fit some prerequisites. So this diagram is based from the regional program Relief, guiding companies towards functional economy. It shows that three main categories that companies need to tackle. So it's, for example, strategy and vision, knowing their constraints and opportunities, and analyzing their predisposition toward economy of functionality and cooperation. So in the strategy and vision, companies should be able to control their strategy, and they should have knowledge of perceived value and usage. They should have knowledge of corporate positioning and a vision and ability to project. And regarding their constraints and opportunities, they should have executive flexibility as well as flexibility towards stakeholders to make change in their business model, but also very important, they should have a leeway towards legal and regulatory framework. And finally, regarding the predisposition towards EFC, companies that want to implement EFC in their business model should have innovative capability, commitment to sustainable development, and means available to conduct a model change study.
Okay, I will follow on. I will share here some key points of my experience when helping companies to move forward from a standard business model to the functional economy model. And what we can see, has any change, everything is starting from the top. It's really key and really important that top management is fully involved in this change and has totally agreed that it is part of the strategy, because the change will be very deep, both on the organization side and on the skills side. So there will be a lot of investment to do regarding this, mainly, and a lot of means to put in supporting the change. So it's a matter of being ready. To be ready to evolve and to change, of course, it seems so obvious, but it brings the companies to do some things that they have never done before. Getting much deeper in what the customer is doing with the products or the type of solutions that we are proposing on the market, trying to clearly understand what are the use deeply and what are the different processes of the customer. Be ready to commit to some dedicated results. It's not the matter of giving the right means so that the customer can find its own solution. It's really to be involved and to get commitments on what are the outputs. So to go deeply to determine which kind of outputs the customers are looking, depending on the different segments on the market, and to be ready to fix some key points, some key indicators, and to go and achieve them. It means there will be a contract behind and so on. To be ready to talk differently to the customers, because there you have to go deeper in their processes. So you need to clearly understand what they do with the product and how they are using them, for which purpose, for which kind of outcome. Be ready to train and support your sales representative, but also the whole team in the company. Everyone has to be has to understand what are the different consequences of that kind of model. But especially the salespeople, salesmen and women, there is a need to understand that selling a product and selling a service is not exactly the same process, and there are a strong impact on the behaviors and the relationships. Be ready to train. Be ready to innovate. Of course, you cannot move forward to these new models with exactly the same product. You will have the need to add a little bit of innovation in it, especially for the products to last much longer, because you are not going to sell the product, but to sell the use of the product. The product is your property, so your interest is that the product lasts very long. Be ready also to build new offers, okay, with some customers. It's a matter of cooperating. You will not do the job alone. It's very interesting and very powerful to include some key customers from different segments to build together the solutions that then you can offer to a lot of different customers later. Be ready also to increase the amount of data you're going to collect. Okay, the products you are selling needs to talk to you. You need to gather data on how they're used, what are their normal functioning times and key indicators regarding this. Okay, so it's also a place where you can bring a little bit of innovation if your products are not talking to you already. Be ready to add services, okay, because going forward to solutions means adding a high level of value services. Okay, and there is a wide range of services that you can bring in. For example, generally, when you sell a high technology product and the customer is not able to use it correctly, then you send maybe some kind of documents so they can read, and that's it. For example, in sometimes, but there you change your mind, and your target is not the customer to read any kind of document. Your target is that the customer knows how to use your product. So maybe you're going to sell a little bit more trainings or a little bit more of support. And that's a little bit of new service that you're going to sell, for example. Check that your existing customer or field service is fully operational and profitable. The reason of it is that you will bring a lot of services together with the product. So if the existing services you've got, like the aftermarket service, field service, customer service, support service, is not clearly operational, you may have some troubles to develop a solution. So it's one of the key starting points. Be ready also to hire or to train people to have new way to get to partner to maybe also to unusual partners. You will have maybe to hire new people with new mindset, or to work with partners that you were not used to work with. Maybe sometimes there could be some subcontractors. Maybe they can be from a totally different market. Working, for example, if you are in a very metal industry, maybe you will have to work with an IT partner, for example. Be ready also to be further responsible towards society and environment, because you have to commit to some results also on these sides. So yeah, if I can summarize in one sentence, it's the last one: be ready to help your customers to succeed in their own business.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurent and Amandine, for all this information. We can see that now servitization is a path for a company, and it's a big issue, and it needs a different mindset. So now Sophie is going to explain to us how researcher thinks about this transformation. Sophie, it's your turn.
Yes, okay, thank you, Nadine. Hello, everyone. First, I would like to remind you what we mean by a business model. A business model depicts the way a company creates, delivers, and captures value, of course, on the basis of its products and services. There are several ways to represent a business model. Here at the bottom of the slide, you can see two ways of representing it. On the left-hand side is what we call the RCOV model. This model is based on three main parts, which are the resources and competencies, the internal and external organization, and the value propositions. And of course, the value which is captured by the company results from the relationships between these different elements. On the right-hand side, there is a much more known representation, which is the business model canvas. Maybe some of you already know this model. On the center of this model, there are also the value propositions, and then there are several blocks which are related to the customer, to the resources, to the activities, and of course to the revenues and costs, and finally the benefits, the financial benefits that can be gained with the business model. Product service systems, of course, lead to new value propositions. These value propositions can be quite different and varied. There are several typologies that exist. Here you can see a classification of different product service systems. They can be product-oriented product service systems, where the value is mainly related to the product. There also are use-oriented business product service systems, and result-oriented product service system. In result-oriented product service system, the value lies mainly in the service contents. So here is a typology of product service systems that can be offered by companies. And another classification, thank you, shows that services that can be offered by companies can be split into several categories. The first one is basic services, which are very close to the product, for instance, spares, of course. There are also intermediate services, such as repair, condition monitoring. And at the end, there are much more advanced services which are close to the result-oriented product service system that I mentioned before. For instance, rental agreement, performance contract, and so on. So we can see that behind the notion of product service systems, there can be a lot of different value propositions. But there is a common characteristics of this offer. It is that they modify the other dimensions of the business model. We saw on the previous slide that the business model is the relationship between the value propositions, but also the resources and competencies, and also the organization. So when you modify the value proposition, you also have to modify the other dimensions of the business model. Next, please, Nadine. Thank you very much. So the first dimensions which is modified is the resources and activities, which are going to be more service oriented. And some resources or some activities will have to be integrated into the company activities. Here are some examples of which activities or resources would be needed. For instance, the company will need to know in depth the customer's product usage and the customer's process. The company will probably have to get capabilities on data processing and interpretation competencies. We'll also have to develop design to service competencies. The company also has to learn how to value services, because it's not straightforward for a manufacturing company to value services. And it's also, the company will also have to know how to sell, deliver, and build them. And of course, companies will need a product sales force and product service sales force, a distribution network, and a field service organization. Maybe it can seem obvious, but it's not commonplace for most of manufacturing companies. I will also underline that product service systems very often will lead the companies to develop a collaborative capability, since product service system offerings generally call for complementars. That is, the manufacturing companies will need to build relationships with partners, which can be either will have specialist skills, for instance, software and hardware specialist skills, or maybe with a distributor network, or with local partners that will take in charge maintenance operations, for instance. But in every case, I think that companies will have to develop this very important collaborative capability. And the last dimension, which is very deeply modified, is the customer relationship. With product service systems, the relations with the customers are much longer. And the manufacturing companies will have to integrate this very long and trust-based relationships with their customers. And maybe the previous relationship, which was price-based, will move to a more relational contract. Of course, the customer interface, that is the process of information and cooperation between the customer and the manufacturing company, has to be modified to integrate specific dimensions. For instance, it will probably require a specific organization with specific peoples and specific tools. And there will probably have an increased intensity of communication between the company and its customers. So the company has to take this into account. And the service delivery, that is how the service is delivered to customers, is also a very important question, a very important issue. So the company will have to think about who are the people who are going to deliver the service, which skills and abilities do they need, and how will be organized the delivery process. And finally, I think that manufacturing companies, in order to sell services and to sell product service systems, have to change their mindsets. Their product service systems lead to a cultural transformation in manufacturing companies, because most of manufacturing firms are not familiar with service activities, and sometimes with a strong proximity with customers. And overall, the company will have to integrate much more deeply the customer into its processes. And it means that managers, but not only managers, all the employees of the company will have to adapt their behavior and their values. For instance, it can be implemented through the participation of customers in the design of products and services. There will be a strong collaboration between the marketing and the production departments. Probably the company will have to develop a relational marketing and maybe to use customer relationship management tools. The use of client data would be used in assessing the effectiveness of the organization. And of course, the interpersonal skills of customer contact personnel must be improved in order to fit with this new orientation in the firm strategy.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for all these points. We speak a lot about company, so I suggest now to see how our company deal with all these points. So Gilles is going to explain to us how Klextral deals with this point. Hello, Gilles.
Thank you, Nadine. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm in charge of services and sales and international operations at Klextral. The idea is to share a testimony of how service has evolved in our company over time. Next. So before jumping into our history, it's important to give a bit of background, because the way we do business may be different from other companies. So Klextral, we are an equipment manufacturer. So we make machinery, as you can see on this picture, mostly for the food industry. And those machines are going to last 30 to 40 years, which is a good point, because for 30 or 40 years, we are going to sell services, spare parts, etc. We were created back in the 50s, so quite a long time ago. So we have a bit of experience, but we are still a mid-sized company, a bit more than 300 people over the world. However, even though we are small in size, we operate on a global scale. Headquartered in France, but subsidiaries and offices in 12 different locations on the 5 continents, and customers in over 100 countries. So we are talking about machinery, long-lasting, with wear parts, everywhere in the world, but still in a fairly small company. So our customers, they come in many sizes and shapes and skills and level of development. Next. So this will be, it is going to be just an example of a journey. I'm going to talk a lot about things you said before, PSS, servitization, business model, partners, etc. And you can relate with the different topics that have been shared before. On this slide, it just shows a map of some of the services we have developed over time. And you see it goes from the 80s to today, and I'm sure we are going to develop more and more services. And we developed those services to cater to different needs. Needs of our customers are being more complex, more accurate, more demanding, and again, it depends on the customer. Therefore, for instance, we used to sell spare parts for customers, but now we are talking about uptime. They don't always care about what we sell them. They want to make sure that when they need to run the factory, the machine is going to run. So we are going toward full scope of services. As an example on those different lines, we did basic operator training in the past, and today we have a program we call Klextral Learn, which is basically a Klextral Academy, because you cannot find people who are trained in schools, in universities to operate those kind of machinery. So we created our specific training programs, very well structured for our customers. Same, we used to sell spare parts. Today, for some parts, it is pay as you go. Even though we do not rent the spare parts per se, but we have a payment scheme that is going to mitigate any risk the customer may have. To go further, in some instances, we deal with trade-in, used machine, even rental of equipment. So that's a different business model than just selling a machine and selling spare parts. And of course, the service in itself was used. It used to be done from France, from technical people based in France and traveling, and then from people based over the world. But we are going to move, and we are moving toward remote monitoring. It's important to have in mind that we are not going to sell everything to everybody. It's not one size fits all, and we cannot be everything to everyone. We need to find the right match between the customer and the products we propose. It's going to depend upon the customer, its skills, technical skills, for instance, where is located, the logistic to get there, the legal environment in the country we operate or where our customer operates, the culture of our customer, etc., etc. Therefore, we need to understand better our customer and to create a customer intimacy. And the customer intimacy is key to know what to propose and to create a real win-win relationship around the service. Next. And to support this evolution of the portfolio, of course, the organization has changed over time. So here again, we go through a timeline going back to the 90s to today. And someone said earlier that service is a long evolution, a long journey, and we are here for the long run, especially when we make machinery which lasts decades and decades. So the first step seems very basic when you look in the rear view mirror, but we went through that, was to create a dedicated customer service department to give visibility to the service. Because in the 90s, we started to have an installed base that was big enough so that on the P&L, the service line was meaningful. And we created a service with dedicated salespeople. And those salespeople for service, it was quite new to have incentives on sales of spare parts and services. But that was the first transformation where we asked generally former technical people to do a sales job. Then we went one step further with our international development. I mentioned that we have customers in 100 countries. Of course, it did not happen over time. But selling machinery from Europe and everywhere in the world is doable. However, servicing properly our customers from Europe is not always very easy. Therefore, we decided to create service offices or Klextral outposts on the 5 continents in order to create more proximity with our customers worldwide to be able to support them better. However, one issue we encountered at some point is that with people in 10 or 12 different countries, it started to be almost sometimes different companies. So we had to put that back together into what we call Klextral One in order to deliver one homogeneous global message to our customer. one level of service. One level of service does not mean that they all get all the same services, though, because as I explained before, depending upon the country, etc., we cannot offer services, the same services. However, the expertise is the same globally. And we integrated the service speech directly in the sales of new equipment, because selling a new equipment takes what, 6 to 12 months, but you are going to use it for 30 years. So it's important to tell your customers that he's going to get a good service for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Even though we have a global message and people trained, having the same training, etc., we kept the organization very flexible in various parts of the world, because locally we wanted to have the flexibility of local organizations to communicate properly with our customers, to take into consideration the local culture and make sure that we deliver the service properly in each country. Then one step further, we realized that our service engineers were real ambassadors of our technical solutions. So we decided to put incentives, to give them incentives when they go to a customer and they promote new services which are meaningful, then they get a bonus. So service is really, and selling service is really something that everybody is involved in. And as the services portfolio was getting more and more complex, lately we put a senior service expert with the salespeople. And this person is really the guy we go to when we have a complex offer to make in terms of services. How can I craft the right portfolio of services to a given customer? Then we need to have someone with experience, we know the customer, who knows the services. Next. And today, where we are, actually we are at a level where there is a certain maturity of the global organization. It is taken at the right level, VP level in terms of management, but then each and every part of the company has clear objectives linked to the services. Clear KPIs for the salespeople. We're talking about visibility on the website, an R&D budget line identified for service, creating new services or features that are going to help the service, having the right inventory. But if you have the right inventory, the finance guys, they need to know, well, your working capital is going to be impacted. You need to have the right contract. So it really trickles down everywhere in the company. And there are three aspects which are, I think, very important in terms of service. And the more we go, the more important it is. We want to create customer intimacy. We need to gather more data about customers, to know more about them every day. Therefore, intellectual property is key, and confidentiality is really is key as the IP. So we need everybody in the company and with our customers to have this level of trust, which based on confidentiality and respect of IP. So that's where the organization is today. It will change tomorrow. In 2020, we have seen the acceleration of remote support that we thought was just impossible just 12 months ago. But well, COVID-19 and everything, we learned to do things that were not doable, and more opportunities to perfect the business model to create new services are just going to happen tomorrow again. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. Thank you for this all this point for your company. So now thank you for all the speakers. Now we can answer question. I have just a little problem because I can't see question. Where are the question in the platform? So perhaps Ben, you can help us.
So simply expand the panel, and there you have the questions pane. So here I don't see any questions yet. So
okay.
If you have any questions, it's time to ask them, and we'll be able to answer them right away here.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one question because there is one I have when I listen to my colleagues. Do you think servitization is more a topic for large companies than SMEs, or it's the same problem that for large company or SMEs? Who wants to answer? Arnaud?
Well, I can.
Yes, Gilles.
Yes, if I may. I think servitization is it does not depend on the company in terms of is that something I need to look at. Everybody needs to look at. However, the answer is going to be different because you don't have the same means if you're a large company, the same customer portfolio, the same delivery of services as a smaller company. However, sometimes a smaller company will be more agile to deliver new services and will have the capability to do things faster. So it is a question for everybody, but the answer will be different depending upon who you ask the question to.
Okay, thank you.
I see one additional two questions, but I think they're very, very similar. So can we speak about IT systems supporting product as a service? And what kind of IT systems for product as a service transformations?
Laurent, Gilles, Arnaud, Amandine?
Yes, I can bring a little bit of an experience from there. Yeah, the IT system is highly involved in this kind of model because you have to gather data from the customer use. So yes, indeed, you may either enhance your IT service if you or your IT division if you've got one, or you need to link with partners with the right knowledge to bring all the data somewhere. Okay, somewhere like either on a platform or an existing platform or something you have to develop, and then you have to exploit this data and to make something out of them. So that's one point to gather the data. The second point is how you will equip your equipment with sensors so that they can bring some data. And the last point is about the skills. You need to have within your company a higher level of skills regarding IT to be used to deal with different kind of data.
Thank you, Laurent. Gilles, can you speak about Klextral and IT?
I'm not sure would be a great example for that, but actually the IoT may be different from different equipment. So there are two aspects of IT: your own system and how to gather the right information and to manage properly the information you get from your customers, so that you can propose to your customers the right services and preemptively tell them you need to look at this or that. I mean, that's helping your customer be more efficient. And then there is the data gathering itself from the equipment, which is not always easy because some equipment, the newer equipment, can be equipped with some sensors, and then you can get some data. But I will come back on that. But older machines, well, sometimes they are what they are. So the data you gather, it's by having technical people going there and taking notes. So the data gathering, depending upon the age of the equipment, and also the technology that the equipment can embark may be very, very different. Here also, it really depends upon your product. And one more thing which is important about data gathering: a customer needs to share data, and so he needs to trust you so that he's going to give you some information. Sometimes our customers think that their information is super secret and they are the only one doing this. So you need to make them understand that you are going to keep their information very confidential because this is their property and their knowledge. So it's a multifactorial aspect when we talk about IT: gathering, treating the data, etc., etc.
Thank you, Gilles. Do you have another question, Zbigniew?
Yes, I see. How do you fund these transformations? Selling services brings less revenues at the start of the transaction than selling products. So I think, yes, it was a question in the last. So selling services, does selling services bring less revenue at the start than selling products?
I'm going well, it depends what kind of, if you rent a product, yes. definitely. If you rent some products, the revenue is less at the beginning, but on the long term, you can get a better revenue stream and better margin, and even monetize better the equipment if you rent it. The drawback also of renting is that your working capital and your balance sheet is going to be impacted. So that's why you cannot rent equipment to everybody unless you are structured to do that. But that's a totally different business model. In our case, we do some rental on some very, very precise case per case. For other things on the service, when I mentioned pay-as-you-go, it's when we have very expensive solutions which are going to last longer than standard ware solution. We take some risks, so you need to have a certain size and financial strength to take the risk, where we are going to have delayed payment. So your cash flow is lower at the beginning, but the value delivered in the long term is probably better for the bottom line. It should be better for the bottom line, or don't do it if it's not.
Sophie, you want to answer?
Yes, just like I think that Laurent and Gilles said that developing services is a very long journey, and I think that maybe at the beginning the activity may not bring enough value, but I think that companies should see it as an investment, and that the revenues maybe will rise at a certain point, but maybe not, of course, on the short run. Maybe companies have to consider developing services on the long run and not on a very short term.
Thank you, Sophie. Spinu, another question or not?
Maybe I could add just a word.
Yes, okay, so
yes.
Please answer, and afterwards I will read it because I got additional question.
Okay, I will be short. Just to add, yes, if you switch totally from the old model to the new model, you will have a short decrease on the short term in the revenue stream. So generally what is done in many companies is that to get there gradually, getting from one segment of the market, one kind of product, adding a lot of different kinds of services and selling these services together with the product, and then getting on the way so that the revenue stream is not getting down too quickly and too shortly. So it's a gradual approach.
Thank you.
Thanks. So next question I got was, so pricing and marketing must be closely involved in the transformation as well as finance. So if you could comment on this.
I think that if I understand well the question, I'm not sure.
So but I think the idea of the question was that the transformation needs to be joint effort by pricing teams, marketing teams, finance teams, so that all of them should work together to prepare this joint offering.
Yes, that was the answer I wanted to make. That is, I think that, as Gilles said, that services, introducing services in the company, at least for a small or intermediate size company, you need to imply everyone in the development of services. And then, of course, every department and every people in the company must be aware and convinced of the importance of services. This is my opinion. Maybe Gilles or anyone could.
I agree. It's a team effort. No, it's a team effort, and again, as Laurent explained, it's a granular transformation. So it's not boom, everything is going to happen overnight. But when you start doing some services, innovative services, you need to look closely at your pricing, your supply chain. Finance must be involved, depending upon, of course, the new service you put in the market. So yeah, it's a global team effort, and you want to have everybody aligned with the service transformation or service development of the company.
I see additional question. I think it is a bit cut, but I think it is something like how to make sure that the pricing of services is consistent with the product pricing.
Yes, maybe we can also add that sometimes there is no transition. For example, a few spin-off or startups begin with a service-based business model, and they will never know a product-based model. So today we spoke about transition and servitization, but sometimes companies start with a service-based model from scratch.
Thank you, Arnaud.
Regarding the pricing, I think, yes, it's a very tricky issue for companies. I don't think that anyone has the answer for every case, but I just think that companies must be very careful, of course, in the pricing of their services. And that's a very important and very difficult issue, to my opinion. But there's no recipe, I mean.
There might be one.
Okay.
The right price is the price that the customer is ready to pay.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
of course, yes.
So maybe I can add something about it. Talking about the pricing is starting from talking to the total cost of ownership. The key point when you switch to this kind of model is really to help the customers, if they are not aware of, to help them to clearly understand what is the total cost of ownership of what you have sold them, the type of product they've got, the type of equipment they've got. Because when they know clearly the real cost of the total cost of ownership of their product, then they can compare your new value-added proposition to what they've got. And you can then find a kind of right level of pricing. It's a good starting point. Okay, and I totally agree, there is no specific recipe, but it's a good starting point.
Thank you, Laurent.
Yeah, and it's a good way also
Gilles,
to
yes.
sorry, excuse me, just to complete, because I like what Laurent said.
Mm.
It's also a way not to talk about price, but to talk about value, and to have a different way to valorize, to monetize the upside of what you propose to the customer. So you're just not looking at a pure price, but you help the customer see the global picture, and that's when I think we create a good win-win situation.
Yeah.
I see the last question just came in. Do you see consulting firms helping companies in such transformations?
Amandine, perhaps? Arnaud? Yeah.
And Laurent, I think, maybe.
Yes, maybe Laurent.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've heard completely the question. Could you just repeat it, please?
So the question was, do you see consulting firms helping companies in such transformations?
Yeah, of course. Well, yes, I know a specific company, which is mine, but you can also, there are some program locally, specifically in France, and there might be some others across Europe, I'm not sure, but you've got here a lot of people that can help you to see. But in France, for example, there is a program called Relief, which is helping companies to start to understand if their model can switch, and to have some kind of subsidy to understand the feasibility, to go up to the feasibility of the project and see if they can switch. So these kind of programs can help to test. And then there are some few consulting companies which are aware about this type of models and are helpful for that. Yes, there are some all across the world.
Thank you, Laurent.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions coming, so I would like to thank all of you. So thanks a lot for your moderation. Thanks a lot for very interesting presentations to all the presenters, and thanks a lot for participants, for you being with us, and for lots of interesting questions from your side. So
thank you, Zbigniew, for your technical support.
You're most welcome, and I want to invite you to follow the DigiFoF project and join us on the next webinars. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.